Hello, and welcome to Sutro Sidetalk, episode 194. I am your host, Kamran Shushtar, and with me is...
James Sillig.
This is Sutro Sidetalk, where we talk what we watch and play, along with select news every now and again. If you guys recently heard episode 193, where we talk the Summer Game Fest and Xbox Showcase, we just did that a few hours ago. We just finished recording that. We pretty much talk about that in that episode as well. We're putting out 2 episodes this week, so that was the Monday or Tuesday, hopefully Monday if I got everything done on time. I don't know, honestly. It's late. Monday was all that news and stuff, and then Friday is when you're hearing this episode. We are talking Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse and Transformers Rise of the Beasts. So we're going to be talking about just those movies. We don't have any news since they were all moved into that other episode. Just a quick thing, of course, if you want to put in questions, comments, or feedback to the show, you can at sutrosidetalk@gmail.com. And stay tuned at the end. We'll talk about what's going on next week, because it's also a little busy, but we'll see what's happening, really, depending on availability and scheduling and everything else. But with that said, we're just going to hop right into it, just because we already recorded 1 episode and it's later now. And we're just
It was like almost 2 hours.
Yeah.
There's a lot of news.
So much freaking news. Also, James, there's an Xbox Extended Showcase again on the 13th. It's just more in-depth stuff on the...
Oh,
yeah,
right.
so we don't have to... We're not
that.
we're not going to be talking about that probably, unless there's something be like, oh, did you notice the blah, blah, blah? But, most likely not. We're going to stick to what we're already going to do, which, like I said, we'll talk about at the end of the episode. So let's jump right into Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. And, of course, spoilers. You've been warned. This movie... I'd rank it below Amazing Spider-Man 2 and the Tom Holland trilogy for sure. I think it was okay, but...
Okay, I know you're fucking with me.
Yeah.
Because I personally hate the Andrew Garfield...
Well, you didn't like the original version of Electro where he's like, Spider-Man.
I did like that.
Yeah, so this is a great movie. This was a sequel to Into the Spider-Verse. It's the animated one with Miles Morales as the main character. And this is a 2-parter. So it ends on like a cliffhanger of sorts. And we get the 3rd film, Beyond the Spider-Verse, next year. So it's like when you watch Fellowship of the Ring and it ends and you're just like, wait, what happened? And it's like, oh, you have to wait for Two Towers that comes out next year. And you're like, oh, shit. And we're getting this kind of like a couple times now because that happened in Fast X and it's now a trilogy. So you're like, oh, I have to wait for the second Fast X movie or Fast 11 XXL. What do you want? Oh, they should call it XL. Oh my god, that's perfect. And now we have this.
That would be funny.
Yeah. And I realized in my like topic list, I didn't even mention the animation, which we could just talk about first.
Yeah, that's one of the coolest things in this movie is just like I can't even imagine the amount of work that went into animating this movie, because it's not just one art style. There's like, I literally would have to either get another ticket for the movie or like rent it eventually just to count how many different art styles they used for this movie, because like literally every character's world is different.
Yeah,
like they even went to like Lego Spider-Man world at one point, and it was literally just like the Lego movie.
Yeah.
Oh, that was the part that I
love Lego Spider-Man, just like beep boop 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 boop. And I'm just like, oh yeah, that's great. And it's weird because this was our first on-screen Lego since Lego Movie 2. And that was when WB had the rights to Lego, which there was working with Disney a little bit, because in the first Lego movie, we had Star Wars in there. They had like Lando and Chewie and stuff. Whereas
they also had the whole like Lego Batman spinoff.
Yeah. But I mean, like in terms of like cross distributor, because Disney owns Star Wars and they were able to get that into the WB made Lego movie.
Right.
Whereas this is like, okay, this is Disney with a Lego, or not Disney, this is Sony with it, but right now Lego movie stuff is done by, or it's currently owned by Universal, who hasn't done jack shit with it so far. Thanks, Universal.
Huh.
And yeah, right now Universal has the movie rights, which is why we're not getting anything else from WB. We've only gotten like 4 movies from them. I was hoping for more, but we didn't. I'm wondering if they had to like work with Universal a bit to get the rights to even use Lego in the film. I didn't check the credits to be like, oh, Universal right there or something. But it was cool to see like that in there. Each character, of course, just like in the first movie, the way they show like Penny Parker and Spider-Man Noir and stuff like that, Peter
Yeah.
Porker. Each one has their own distinctive like style, and I think in this one, besides Lego, the one that kind of stands out the most is probably what Hobie's
Yeah, I was
version,
gonna say that the standout easily is Hobie,
aka Spider-Punk.
Spider-Punk.
Yeah,
Because he literally the way his art style looks, it's literally just stands out. Because it looks like he's like cut out of like a magazine or whatever. Like the best way I could describe it is like he looks like what you would imagine a British punk album would look like.
yeah. And then you have kind of different versions of Spider-Man that are in the current animation, but still like it's like they're cut out from their original animation and like
like I
repainted
noticed,
a bit, like Spectacular Spider-Man.
Yeah, I noticed Spectacular Spider-Man.
Ben Reilly's Spider-Man was pretty funny. Yeah.
Besides Hobie, he's probably my favorite just because I love they leaned into like Ben Reilly was a bit more of like a dramatic Spider-Man,
but more so like the animation of him.
Yeah, he's like very dark.
Yeah, and it was cool just seeing all those different ones, and then when they go to like I forget the like India Spider-Man, I forget.
Mumbattan.
Yeah, Mumbattan.
Which is like I love that that's like a combination of Mumbai and Manhattan, and they just like sandwiched it together because of course like you can't have Spider-Man not in New York, even in Indian Spider-Man world.
I laughed because when I saw that city, I was like, wow, this is the new #1 city I never want to step foot into in my entire life if I can help it. I was like, Jesus Christ, no thank you.
Was it when he was like giving a tour of the city? He's like, here's where the traffic is. This is all also where the traffic is. There's traffic here too.
Yeah, no, it was everything about it just made me want to hide somewhere else completely. It was great.
It was just like super crowded.
Yeah, I hated it. Oh God, I hated that. I mean, it was great design. It was just, I hate the idea of that being a place you have to be in.
Dude, when like the chunk of Alchemex was like falling through the city, I was like, I'm sorry, there's no way you're saving everyone. There's too many people.
And not talking about Spot himself yet, but like when he changes, like his animation style completely changes too, where it's like it's almost like a rogue animation within the animation, like kind of like when he's like in the full like black style.
Yeah,
I really like almost that. Like swallowing up the other like animation surrounding it, which I thought was interesting.
Yeah, I thought it was really cool that when he gets overcharged with like portal power, he is like almost all black with just a few small white swirls, right? Like spots.
Yeah. Otherwise, I'm trying to think. Like, was there anything else that stood out in terms of like the animation itself that really like popped, besides the standard of the mainline animation itself being very superb? Just because like I constantly say 3D animation compared to like the 2D animation still to this day is still inferior in quality and like looking good. Like even if they do look good, when you look at traditional like Treasure Planet or Atlantis, which, you know, Disney used Treasure Planet to kill 2D animation. They're like they purposely made it flop so they could switch to 3D, this is a fun thing. Look it up, guys. It's interesting. You look at those and how amazing 2D looks in traditional drawn, and you look at all the new stuff and it's like, yeah, this is what you know, it's cool, but it's not as good. But at the same time, they're not going for top quality. They're going for what's the most affordable practically at this point now. And at least Spider-Man is able to pull it off in a really beautiful way. And it really shows up, just like, you know, everything. Even like, I love How to Train Your Dragon. How to Train Your Dragon compared to like Road to El Dorado and Prince of Egypt looks like crap practically. But, you know, I thought they really did a great job with Spider-Verse. In terms of like 3D, I think it's my favorite animation style for like 3D animation so far.
Yeah. Like, so I mentioned I was impressed by just the amount of art styles they had. But was also impressive was just like the amount of stuff happening on screen at any given point, like in certain scenes. Like, I mean, even from when the like I guess Da Vinci sketch Vulture showed up, and like he every time he was using one of his gadgets, like more sketches showed up in the corners to be like practice sketches or whatever. Like I don't know, like it looked interesting, but then
Oh yeah,
like
the style of the Renaissance, the Renaissance
yeah,
culture.
and then like when Miles is getting chased, there's like dozens of different Spider-Men on screen at any given time to like to chase him, and that's one of the reasons why I'm actually interested in either, if not going to see it in theaters again, definitely renting it or watching it somewhere again,
I'll be buying
like
it for
multiple
sure.
times, just to go back and like see like how many different kinds of Spider-Man can I like recognize or even look up to see like where they came from and stuff like that. Like it's truly impressive, and that's why I was like, I can't even imagine how much work went into making this movie, because it's like just combining all the different art styles with just the amount of shit happening on screen at once is like staggering.
Yeah. And it's hard to say like if I went through and like labeled them all and like there's this one, this one, this one, and I'm like, yo, they made these ones up, and I'm like, but did they? There's probably
Yeah,
some
like
far corner of just the throughout since the 1960s in some Spider-Man comic or action figure or cartoon or something just like Zebra Batman and shit, where it's like no one's seen this design in decades, and they pulled it out and said, let's throw that in there. So someone just goes like, yeah, they made that one up, and it's like, no, this existed, but no one
yeah,
realized it anymore. It's like
like
that kind of
one
thing.
like one of the ones that jumped out to me that like maybe I'm like maybe it wasn't what I was thinking of, but there was one Spider-Man that was running around with a bag on his head, and I'm pretty sure that's a reference to like literally one time Peter was like leaving the Fantastic Four or whatever, and he didn't have his suit, so he had to make one up by wearing like a Fantastic Four suit and a bag over his head, and they called that the Bombastic Bag Man. That's like a one time thing, and I was just like, whoa, they even got the Bag Man in there.
It's cool too. They had two references to the Spider-Man PS4 game. They had the
Yeah,
actual Spider-Man, and then they had Spider Cop, who he always like
I
does on
didn't
the
even
radio.
notice Spider
He
Cop
was
was in there. I
directing
thought
the
you were talking about
traffic
when.
in like when they first show the giant amount of them. Yeah.
That's funny. I thought you were talking about when Genki was like literally playing Spider-Man on the
I mean, besides
PS5.
that, too, yeah, there was like in advertising, and I'm just like, I didn't know you guys
It's a
could get
Sony
away with
movie. It's
that.
got to have some Sony stuff in there.
Oh, they had so much Sony stuff in there, like, and
Yeah.
of course the amount of like Nike, like Sony headphones and everything else, Nike shoes, even though Nike, I mean, Nike's always going to be in there practically.
Yeah.
Um, which I will say really fast. Well, two things. One, sorry, like I know you guys like if you saw the PlayStation episode, I was like coughing throughout the entire thing. There's still crap in my throat still. So like last episode I was pretty good. I only coughed a few times. This time I'm like, I feel it. So there are chances, sorry guys, I'll be like kind of dying for a second. So James, try not to make me laugh, please.
I'll try.
No, it'll be fine. But the other thing being that, what was I about to say? I had, oh my god, I just lost it. Oh, the fact that they throw in what was it? Was it? I actually did blank it. Shit, it was like it was there and then it was taken out again.
Aw.
It'll come out. It'll probably come back to me in a second, but I will say like the trilogy here that they're forming. Oh, okay, I remembered it, but I'll say it after. The trilogy here they're forming, like there's only going to be 3 movies. Once it's done, it's done. They're not going to do any more. Like Phil Lord and Chris Miller, or is it? Yeah. I also almost said Chris Lord and Phil Miller, and I'm like that doesn't sound right at all. They are pretty much exhausted from this apparently already, and I'm like, you guys aren't even done yet. And it's like they've been apparently working nonstop. Like the chase scene apparently took 4 years to do.
I could see that.
And it's very believable considering like they probably just had an animation team dedicated only to that, where everyone else is like working on the other stuff. But I'm happy to get all of these. Like I already have the first one, and I don't own every single Spider-Man movie that's come out so far. I literally just have the Tobey Maguire trilogy on DVD, and then I'll have these on like 4K Blu-ray or whatever. Uh, Otherwise, I don't feel the need to buy any others, except like if I got one more, it would have been like maybe just the first Amazing Spider-Man with Garfield, because that one's at least really enjoyable. But
Yeah.
the other thing being, I just want to talk about it real fast, the shoes. Now, the Nikes in this, because what they do is they'll give Miles a pair of Nikes, and then they'll do like an actual physical drop of those shoes online. And like everyone will, the shoes will sell out in a second. And then you have to like rebuy them somewhere for like a stupid price. And the first set from the first movie, oh my God, it was so good.
Was that what that was a reference to?
What?
Because early in the movie,
Yes.
when Miles was
Genki?
like, no, well,
Genki
maybe,
was wearing his shoes, right?
no, maybe it was another thing, but like there was a moment where it was like, yeah, so you kind of know my story. Here's what's happened in the last year since I've been Spider-Man, and one of the things he had to like apologize for a couple things.
Maybe.
Like,
No, I think that was separate stuff. But
okay.
the whole thing, like the shoes were really dope in the first movie, and then the second movie, they weren't as good. Like I was like, ah, man, these aren't worth it. But the third movie, I don't think it's going to be Miles Morales Spider-Man shoes. And I really hope they do these ones. I will buy those in a heartbeat. I
You
hope
want some
they're
Spider-Man 2099 shoes?
Miles Morales Prowler shoes. Because he was wearing Nikes
Ooh,
in that, which we'll talk about at the end, but
that would be cool.
purple fucking.
A nice purple.
Oh god, I can only imagine how good that's gonna fucking look. But yeah, just wanted to mention that really
Dude,
fast.
his eyes even look like swooshes.
Yeah. So going through like I guess like the character list, because that's kind of how we're gonna go about for this movie. Spot and the bagel effect. What do they call it?
That was so funny. Yeah, I think that's what people were calling it online.
It's
Like,
all right.
just the one throwaway line, the idea that that is like the genesis for the whole like next two movies is so funny.
The fact that like I'm on Twitter all the time, and I'm annoyed because we saw Spider-Man a week after it came out, which was actually harder than I thought it would be because the amount of fucking spoilers online was like inescapable. Where they don't really tell you everything. They're like, what's this person's canon moment? What's their canon like whatever? And they're like pointing this stuff out, and I'm like, or what's their canon event? That's what it was called. And I'm like, what the fuck is everyone talking about? And then I'm either seeing posts about that. I'm seeing posts about Miles doing a meme that we'll talk about in a little bit. And, or there was a post about bagel effect. And I'm like, what the fuck are they talking about, bagel effect? And then we watched the movie and I'm like, this is like those out of context things where it
Yeah.
doesn't spoil you badly because you're just like, what the fuck do they mean? What do they
It's
mean?
like it's like you would know if you knew, but because you don't, it doesn't make any sense at all.
It's like when everyone was having fun doing the Avengers Infinity War spoilers without context, and it's just like
Yeah.
donuts, Squidward, Rafiki throwing Simba off the cliff and shit, and I'm like, oh yeah, no, you won't understand any of that shit, and then you watch the movie and you're like, oh, it all makes sense now. But for this one, I was not expecting, because you see Spot in the trailers, and you're like, okay, he seems like a villain, but we haven't seen anyone else, and besides the other spiders, and I'm like, is he gonna be the main villain for this whole thing? And it's like, yo, they made Spot the villain for 2 movies. For this trilogy, he is the villain for 2 out of 3 movies. Like,
Yeah, and
that's crazy.
Maybe one of my few complaints with this movie is just like I knew that there was going to be a third movie, but I thought that they were going to at least wrap up
Nah.
one of the things at the end of this one, because like the first movie is a pretty self-contained story.
Even back in the news, they did say like it was going to be a 2-parter.
I guess I missed that. So when
I thought it was going to be 4 movies though.
Up,
I didn't think it was going to be like 3 altogether, and 2 out of 3 of them would be the 2-parter. I thought it'd be like 4 movies, but yeah.
So I was actually surprised when To Be Continued popped up, because it felt like they were about to get to like the crescendo of the movie, and it's just like next time.
Yeah, I think They could have done oh my god, for the Beyond, because you know how like certain Spider-Man shows and other things, it'll be like to be continued, or like the continuing episode, they'll be like previously on whatever. Like
Yeah.
they've done that for the original '90s Spider-Man. So when Beyond the Spider-Verse starts up, they should just do a cold opening with the '90s Spider-Man of like previously on Spider-Man, and like they do the old classic
Uh,
like Spider-Man theme and shit when they do that kind of thing. When he's usually fighting. Uh, that's the music they would play for it. So I'm like, I think that would be amazing. Uh, but yeah, Spot, like you're not really sure who he is until a certain point, and then it's like I think not even halfway through. What was it? Maybe a quarter of the way through that you learn that Spot's the
it,
scientist,
it was pretty early.
or
Like
was it when he first encounters him in the
it's like he
corner store?
encounters him on the way to his like
No, he
counseling
still didn't
meeting.
know who he was because he says,
Yeah, it was like he had to leave the counseling meeting, and that's when he was like, "I can't believe you left me. Like you were fight. Like I'm your nemesis, and you left in the middle of our fight." And he's like, "I don't even know who you are. What the fuck are you talking about?" He's like,
yeah.
"You threw a bagel at me," and I
I
was
don't
like,
even know you. And he's still just like, I don't know
"What?"
who that is still. Like, what? And it was very interesting that they were able to pull that off and have him still be the two-parter. I don't know if they're going to want to still include other villains, though, because let's look at the first movie. You have Green Goblin for like a second. It's like the weird monster one that Peter
Yeah,
fights
it's
before he
the
dies.
ultimate
Yeah,
Spider-Man one.
and because it more or less this is supposed to be the Ultimate Universe type
Yeah,
world.
the original Miles Morales came from the Ultimate
Yeah,
Universe.
I know that, but I mean, like for this movie, it's still based heavily on
Yeah,
the Ultimate.
I assumed
Yeah,
that was supposed to be it.
that's crazy. That I still have to read the Ultimate Spider. Like I really wanted to go and read the full run because Bendis did it, but I'm
Yeah.
trying to imagine fucking monster Green Goblin. I'm like, gee, what the fuck happened?
That was definitely one of the weirder ones that like they basically turned Norman into like the Hulk, but he turned into a goblin that could also like throw fire, which was weird.
It's like combining Hobgoblin a little bit there, then
A little bit.
I guess.
Yeah, that was definitely a weird version of the goblin.
Yeah. But overall, it's mainly what Kingpin, Prowler, Scorpion, and Doc Ock. So you have like those four
Yeah.
villains.
And Doc Ock kind of just came out of nowhere for that one. Yeah, she was in it a couple scenes.
Yeah, isn't that Catherine Hahn too? I think I looked it up. I think that's Catherine Hahn's voice. I could be wrong.
Oh, I don't remember.
Yeah, so she's in technically two Marvel worlds because she's also Agatha Harkness in WandaVision.
Okay.
Yeah, that's who she is. Yeah, and for this one, it's just Spot, really. And then technically, I wouldn't even count Spider-Man 2099 as the villain. Like he's just
Yeah, because like he is trying to keep like the multiverse together.
yeah, which
At least
will
the Spider-Verse.
yeah, and we're gonna talk about the whole idea of the who's right and wrong in this situation, or who we think is right, because it's very it's very much a matter of perspective, I guess you would say.
Yeah.
I I think Spot is really cool because I don't think he'd ever be used for anything else ever, not even in live action. Like that's hard to believe to
No,
considering.
he's generally like a pretty joke villain. Like he can be dangerous, but he's basically just a dude who makes portals, and that's it.
Yeah, nothing else really. And I think in comics he just died, so I think Carnage like literally like rips him
Yeah, I did
apart.
see that.
Yeah, so it's funny how it's like, hey, check out the you like the movie, go check out the comic and see what Spot's doing. What's he doing? Oh, he dead. He just died. He's
Yeah.
Carnage killed him. What happened? Why? I don't care. I don't know. It doesn't matter. Overall, do you think he was a cool character of a villain? Because it's like he starts off, you go from comical to kind of like a little pity-ish, like you pity him a bit, to then, oh, this dude just went like full on dark and he's like, I'm gonna fucking kill everything.
Yeah, like he definitely. It is interesting to me how they took, like I said, a joke, generally a joke of a character, and they made him truly terrifying. Like once he's like fully powered up and like just mostly black with the white spots, and he's just like, I'm going to take everything from you. Like I believe him. He's gonna try, and he definitely has the power to do so.
And they turn him into a great, like, in terms of multiverse, like, how do you make a villain on a multiverse level? There's him
Yeah.
now with this very creative idea. The other being the, shit, what are their name? The people that hunt spiders and eat them or some shit. The vampires. I forget what their names are, but there's, like, these weird vampire people that, like, hunt the spiders across the multiverse, and it's, like, a whole thing. That's what,
That
like,
does sound vaguely familiar.
they're literally the villains of the comic Spider-Verse stuff that's going on. I think Dan Slott was the one that did, and they're finally ending that shit apparently. I mean I've heard it's okay, some of it, but you know, the other thing being, I guess, moving on, Miles himself and like kind of the depth we get with this, and I wanted to talk about this specifically because I think like recently someone on Twitter was like, "Oh, I can't believe you'd say that the Tom Holland Spider-Man wasn't great," and I'm like, "Yeah, it was very shallow. There's no like character depth or anything. Like the third one, you're just playing off nostalgia. Without it, it's incredibly okay, and then that's it." And the whole thing here is you get a whole thing of Miles with his family, his parents, and there's so much depth with them where there's very much a explanation of who these characters are, how they are, what they do, and what they mean to Miles and what he means to them. Like there's like throughout the whole movie, it's practically one of the main themes of the
It's
movie.
a very believable, relatable family.
Yeah. And they do a good job of just having them flourish throughout the entire film, not just appear, hi, and then go by and that's it. And
Yeah.
they're going to play a pivotal role again in the third one because they're the potential victims. Especially his dad might be dying. We don't know if he will or will not die in the third one, considering.
Yeah, for whatever reason, I never thought about that like his dad could be the Captain Stacy of his story, essentially.
Yeah. And I think he dies in Ultimate Comics. I think his dad dies first,
He
and then
does.
his mom dies afterwards.
And
like
that was
in a
also
different set, like in a different time of the comics. They both die
Like-
very separately.
that even happened in the Spider-Man 2018 game.
Yeah.
Was Miles' dad died, and I honestly was like shocked that they did it in that one.
Yeah, so like they're not afraid to kill his parents because those are his like Uncle Ben moments. But the whole thing about this is Miles is fighting to not get that Uncle Ben moment, like at least like not the Captain Stacy moment. This would be his Captain Stacy moment as his dad. His Uncle
Yeah.
Ben moment was
His Uncle Aaron.
His uncle, yeah. So, which it's very clever how they work that around. Going, yeah, an uncle dies, and maybe the cop captain dies, but they're just different versions of that. But it's always the cop captain and the uncle, and you're like, I never realized that, and it never really like crosses your mind.
It like the only other thing that sounds similar to me is in Doctor Who. There are like there's a lot of things like obviously it would be boring if as a time traveler he's like I can literally change nothing ever, because then like what do you even watch him do every episode? So like he then he could never get involved. But there are certain things like he cannot change what are called fixed points. So like that's why he can't go back and like murder Hitler for us, because that didn't happen, and that is a fixed point and that you cannot change in the universe. So it's interesting that in this they're like every Spider-Man has these canon events that like need to happen, or else the story or the world, the universe unravels.
Yeah, which is insane.
Yeah.
They really do a good job of projecting like the Spider-Man mythos is above all the law of the land or the law of the multiverse.
I really appreciated that like you get to see like what happens maybe if you do fuck up one of these like canon events. Like if you try to change things, what can happen? And like literally like the fear in like Indian Spider-Man's like voice when he's like, is everything gonna be okay? Like, because he truly doesn't know, because this is like what the fuck is happening?
It's like, yeah, your whole world could. They actually took a book out of the DC page for this one. That was very interesting that they kind of went that way. More recently in DC, in the which one would it be? In the Dark Knight's Metal events from Scott Snyder, he did a lot of Batman stuff along with drawn by Greg Capullo in both Metal and Death Metal. It's this whole thing of like alternate universe, like multiverse invasions, but they're like, oh, is it from the multiverse? And they're like, no, it's from the dark multiverse. So the multiverse is an existing like multiverse of all the different worlds, and they all thrive and do their own thing. They're all separate, right? And then below that is the dark multiverse. And the dark multiverse are all of the universes that are not meant to continue existing. They're ones that are supposed to die off and get destroyed. So it's all these really fucked up stories and everything else, but they don't work correctly, so they're not going to last like the other ones normally would. And they just get undone. So in a way, like once if the canon event does not occur correctly, they turn into dark multiverse style stuff where it's just like, all right, you're just being eliminated. Like you're just taken out of the mix.
Yeah, it's a variant.
Yeah.
Which they mentioned that like this is why we take these variants and put them back where they're supposed to, or else everything might unravel. I also love that they got Donald Glover to show up as the Prowler.
Yeah, you got sorry. You have a lot of live action stuff, which I was not expecting. You have the Andrew Garfield Captain Stacy moment, I believe, right? Yeah.
They showed like all of those moments.
You have
I guess not for
Tobey Maguire, Uncle Ben.
Didn't have that.
Yeah. Well, they each use an example. It's like Tobey Maguire, Uncle Ben.
Uncle Ben, though, they showed like a bunch of like ones we've literally seen before.
Yeah, and Andrew Garfield, Captain Stacy. Like those are the two pivotal moments. Is those two specific ones, and then they still had specific for Gwen Stacy as well, which was funny. Someone points out, I could be wrong, but apparently Spectacular Spider-Man is holding a mattress in his Gwen Stacy event.
Oh, I don't remember that.
Because apparently, she doesn't apparently die in the Spectacular Spider-Man show. They only had 2 seasons instead of 3.
Oh.
And the creators didn't want to make like kill anyone off, because they were like, it's a kid's show. We don't want to like murder anyone. So that's why he's just holding apparently a mattress, and it's like, oh, okay. Funny. Yeah. But
oh god, one other, like, this is gonna be a random thing, but like one thing that made me laugh so hard was in the chase scene. There's like one training room they go through where it's a Spider-Man holding like 2 ropes, like holding 2 things together. Because like in every Spider-Man movie, there's a scene where he's got to like hold shit together by like putting his arms out and like webbing something together. And it's just like, oh my god, that's so fucking funny. They have a training room for just that.
I think the most iconic one is the Spider-Man 2 train stopping, right?
Yeah.
That be, and then like in Spider-Man 1. For Tobey Maguire is Mary Jane and the like train car of children, where it's like, save the woman you love or suffer the children. The choice is yours, Spider-Man. And I think, they do it. Besides the meme one, where they're all chasing Spider-Man, and then that one dude is just like, they all just fall.
Yeah.
For Indian Peter Parker. He has that because he's trying to save also the car of people the bus of people with his girlfriend on it.
Yeah.
And then the captain, the Indian captain as well.
And he's
Indian
like, I could do both.
Yeah. So that was, that was pretty good that they did that, but also kind of honed it like Spider-Man 1 specifically too. So I did appreciate that. Otherwise, in terms of, I guess, like the depth they really have for Miles as a character and like his family and surrounding, and really making you care about the supporting characters, would you say that this is probably the best of like supporting cast and like actual world of the character? This is probably the best one of all the different ones,
because like it's so interesting. They introduced so many different kinds of like Spider-Man, like not even just the background ones, but like the foreground ones, like the Spider-Punks, Indian Spider-Man, and then like a couple others. And like I actually generally was interested in every single one of them. Like, Indian Spider-Man was like one of my favorites of the entire movie because he's just so funny and like fun.
I'd say so, yeah. And the whole thing, like, I always rank, people probably give me shit, I don't care, but Tom Holland's Spider-Man world is the weakest of the 4. Being like, oh, Tobey Maguire, Andrew Garfield, this animated version, and then his. His is so weak because all the characters surrounding him, what are the one thing they all do, and that's it? Comedy.
Oh, yeah.
There's nothing else really with these characters that you're supposed. There's no like actual tension. There's no feeling of what do these characters want. And it's like, oh, hey, Aunt May died. We just found out she does feasts. It's like it took 3 movies for you to find out what she might do besides just being in that house, and that's it. Like,
she's the hot aunt, apparently.
yeah, she's just a fucking hot aunt, and that's all there is. And it's like, okay, shit. So they really need to do a better job in the live action department and take notes from this movie, because I think this is easily the best representation of a Spider-Man and his supporting cast of characters and the depth that they have. Instead of just getting cheap laughs and then coming out going, yeah, it was fucking okay at best.
Yeah.
Then we got Gwen's continuity point, or canon event, which shows her, or not her origin, but just more about her, and seeing that her Peter becomes the Lizard, and he dies. Captain Stacy, her father, blames her for it, or blames Spider-Gwen, which her... I guess people call her Spider-Gwen. I believe her in comic...
She is normally called Ghost
Spider, yeah. So, like, do they even mention that in this at all? They just call her Spider-Woman?
I don't think they ever mention.
Yeah. She's just known by Gwen, because, like, the one time, like, she's called Spider-Woman, I think it's just like, I'm also Spider-Woman when the other Spider-Woman shows up.
Yeah.
It was really cool seeing her kind of, like, do the opening act, I guess you would say. And it starts to spin like, oh, they're both kind of main characters in their own right, where Miles is still front and center, but now you understand Gwen a lot more to an extent. And I don't know if she'll have the same support you'd get in the third movie as you get in this one, just because it's kind of like a one and done. Like, her dad and her are good now. There's not really any, and he's not in danger. He's not captain anymore, so like that eliminates the need for that canon event, as they mention.
Yeah.
So this is kind of like her main little like niche of the trilogy, is she got her time in it, which I thought was cool. And you also finally get to see a little bit more about like the Mary Janes, which in the comics, like that's the band that they're in, because she's like she does ballet, she's a drummer. Called. Yeah, it's like the whole thing about her, which is why like when you see she has like ballet shoes on for the most part until she switches to fucking Hobie's sneakers, apparently.
Yeah.
Oh, God. But anything else on her and in terms of, I guess, like her canon event and moving and I guess
so I thought it was interesting that like a lot of the movie, and this is going to tie into your question later about like who's right about everything.
Yeah.
So Miguel's whole thing is like, you cannot avoid these canon events. It is unbelievably damaging if you do that. And yet we just got evidence, maybe through Gwen, that maybe it's not a guarantee that you have to do these canon events and everything, or else everything will fall apart.
Yeah.
Like, maybe Miles is right that like, yeah, most of the time shit could go wrong, but that's not a guarantee.
Yeah.
Maybe.
And the whole thing too is like, how many canon events is someone supposed to get? Because, you know, the average Spider-Man, like, or main Spider-Man, main comic line Spider-Man, has 3. He has Uncle Ben, Captain Stacy, Gwen Stacy. Like, you have the family member, the cop, and the girlfriend or the significant other all like kind of dying. And those are the 3 blueprints. For Gwen, she just has the Gwen Stacy moment with Peter. Like, you don't know if she had an Uncle Ben moment. You don't see, they never even mention it. And they've avoided I guess with her dad, he was like the combo Uncle Ben, Captain Stacy together, like fusion. But now it's completely avoided. So what happens next? We don't really know. And it seems like it's not all important, especially if it happened naturally. They didn't really have to do any multiverse intervention for that to happen.
Like, she didn't say like, you can't be captain anymore. He just chose himself, like, okay, I can't be a cop anymore.
Yeah. And the thing too is like, at least for Indian Peter, like Miles interfered. Mm-hmm. And that's maybe what caused it. And with Miguel, he interfered in another universe, which also might cause it. If you interfere in your own universe where it happens more naturally, technically, would that
That's a good question.
I think that's maybe the loophole, because that's really a trial and error thing. Because if it works with Gwen, and then if it works with Miles, and he just saves his dad, and it's just like that's that, without anyone else helping, then maybe that's how it works. But we also still don't know. Otherwise, did you think it was interesting have her like sort of spying, lying to Miles, having the thing with Hobie on the side, and everyone kind of knowing about Miles at the same time?
Well, that's the thing. I don't. The Hobie stuff was a little bit weird. I wasn't sure if that was like a joke or not. That she was like maybe getting like.
Indian Peter literally goes like, "Oh, he doesn't know about Hobie." Like the way he says that is like,
yeah, I don't know. But like I did like that she was basically like a spy. Like she knew she couldn't tell Miles everything because she like didn't think he could handle it all.
Yeah.
I guess. And so yeah, that was interesting. Like especially like the again like just the hurt on Miles's voice when Gwen is like, Peter says like, "Hey Miguel, this isn't what we talked about before," and Miles is like, "You talked about this? Like that you planned this?" And he looks to Gwen and he's like, "Did you know?" And she's like, I didn't know how to tell you." And it's like, so yeah, she
all
was
knew.
aware that all of this was going to happen, and she just chose not to tell him.
Yeah.
So
imagine if your friends all have a secret club that they go in without you. Yeah. And then they go, "Yeah, did you know you're the problem of blah, blah, blah?" And you're just like, "Why didn't you guys tell me?" It's like, well, we didn't want to hurt you. And it's like, if you're your friends, you would have told me.
It's like, we knew something terrible was going to happen to you, but we felt it was best for you to just like let it happen.
Yeah. God. Yeah, they were all pretty fucked up for that.
Yeah.
And then, honestly, I can't say Indian Spider-Man's. I don't remember his name. It's very hard to remember.
I know is like Paviter, like Prabarker or something very close to Peter Parker. Okay. But it's like I love that.
But him and Hobie Brown, it was Hobie Brown, right?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, like Indian Spider-Man and Spider-Punk, like these two characters, I enjoyed vastly. Indian Spider-Man is just so happy-go-lucky, but also
he loves being Spider-Man. He's like, it's so easy being Spider-Man.
It's like, how long have you been Spider-Man? 6 months. You're already in the group? Yeah, you know, just whatever. And then he hasn't had any canon events apparently yet. Like, you saw the risk of both the police captain and his Gwen pretty much almost happening, but neither do, and we don't know if he has I guess there might be like an Uncle Ben maybe that happened or not. Either way, maybe. Like it was cool watching his world. Like I said, I personally hate his world, but it was cool seeing like all his outfit, the way he does it. And I saw the original design of Indian Spider-Man, and it's very much just kind of, it's not as interesting as this one. This one, they actually did a much better job of it.
I liked I like that his web shooters like are like a type of yo-yo kind of thing.
Yeah,
and, like he literally uses them differently than any other Spider-Man. I thought that was really creative
because they look like almost just like cultural bracelets for the most part. Yeah, so he was really fun.
My favorite part of Hobie was just like when they're going through the HQ or whatever, and he's just like stealing random shit.
He was great. I love because he's straight up just like walking anarchy of all the Spider-Man. Yeah. He's like, yeah, I'm just gonna fuck around because I can.
It's like that one time like Miguel turns to him and is like, "You're not helping Hobie," and he's like, "Yeah, good."
That's the point. I'm an anti-conformist. Like he just wants to see everything burn. Practically, he enjoys it.
He quits. He's just like, "I guess I'm out." He takes the watch off and leaves.
God, it was so fucking good. But he still had another one because he was still able to keep going to other worlds.
He like just made his own. Like I love the line when like he takes his mask off, which is already cool because it's got like the spike mohawk thing.
Yeah.
And Miles is like, "How are you cooler under the mask?" He's like, "I was always cool."
That was so fucking good. Fucking British man.
Yeah.
God, the way he talked to you, it was just like, it was so British. It was great. Uh,
He even does like Cockney rhyming scheme. I
he
love it.
does. It's fantastic. And both of these characters were introduced in the Spider-Verse comics as well. Like all of these characters, Spider-Verse comics,
Yeah, like
Spider-Gwen
these
included,
these have been known for a while.
except for like I said, Miles because he's Ultimate, but everyone else is
Yeah.
Spider-Verse. And then you have Peter and Jessica. Jessica being pregnant Spider-Woman. She
Yeah.
was pretty standard.
I really liked that she shot her webs out of like the tips of her fingers.
Yes.
Like, and that she like most of the time the spider cycle is like a joke, except for in like Spectacular Spider-Man where they were like, no, see, mathematically you can get around town slightly faster with this bike we give you. But I liked that I forget her name already.
Jessica.
Jessica. She just like used the bike was part of her whole routine. Like,
Yeah.
I thought that was super cool.
I enjoyed that a lot. She made things interesting with just being pregnant. It's like,
Yeah.
I got one along the way. You know, husband, he's great. He's hot or something.
Like most of the time you would think like, wouldn't that be like you'd worry about the baby? It's like, no, she's a fucking Spider Woman. She's way more capable than any normal person.
She's actually better chances of, because like the whole thing of like, well, how do you know? It's like spider sense. She literally can watch out for anything.
Yeah.
And then, you know, the return of Peter, the Peter Parker.
I love that he had May.
Yeah, Mayday Parker is there, and he's just like almost just along for the ride throughout the whole thing because he knows everything about Miles, so he also more or less betrayed Miles, but he's also actively not trying to undo Miles
Like he was the
simultaneously while
one.
everyone else is.
He was the one person during the chase that tried to like talk to Miles and be like, wait, I know this looks bad, but you have to listen to us. Like this has to happen.
Yeah. And he you know, I think he makes the most convincing point, but also, you know, Miles, we'll get to the whole right or wrong thing, but he, at least in terms of relating to the character, does it much, of course, easily much better than Miguel, and then also better than Gwen, because she's just kind of like, fuck you up, you're sorry. And I think the fact that he's like, they're like, you're the worst mentor. And he's like, are you sure? Because Miles seems pretty capable. If anything, out of all the Spider-Man, he's probably the best mentor, I would personally say.
Yeah, I love that. He's just like, yeah, well, I kind of taught him how to do that, so I can't be that bad.
He took out Jessica, so it's like, yeah, no, I think Peter's probably the best mentor they got. And then it was funny seeing MJ again, because you get the whole like, oh, what's going to happen? Who's going to do what now? And May pointing out the window, and you see Gwen there with him, like, hey, I'm what if I said I was putting a team together?
Yeah.
Like, this is definitely really good. Miguel himself, though, Spider-Man 2099. Holy crap. And it's funny because you can only, you know, his equivalent, that I feel like I don't know who came first. I feel like he's based off of his equivalent, but Batman Beyond. You can't do the same thing with both characters because...
Huh. Yeah. No, the 2099 universe is really weird.
Yeah, but what I mean is, like, it works for him being, like, this head of Spider-Man because he's, like, the serious guy. He's an adult. He goes through all the shit, whereas the other Spider-Men are usually a lot more...
well, and 2099 is, like, he has a history of traveling through time and, like, trying to fix timelines and shit like that.
But, he goes through all this stuff, so he's... like, compared to the others, they're all much more wacky and everything else. Whereas with Batman Beyond, it's the polar opposite. Where if you had him in a multiverse of Batman, he's probably like he's the Miles there. He's like, I'm just the kid. I'm just Terry McGinnis. And it's like, well, wouldn't you lead these other Batman? You want him to lead a whole alternate reality of Bruce Wayne's? No one's going to lead Bruce Wayne.
Terry's like, I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. I break this suit all the time.
Also, it would never work because they'd all be like, oh, I work alone. And they all fucking leave each other and go separate immediately. So it's definitely not something you could do. But it is funny because, you know, I've said it before. Batman and Spider-Man are the two, like, you know, they're the flagships of each imprint. Like Marvel and DC. It's Spider-Man and Batman. Yeah. They're the only ones that have fucking multiverses of them all over the place and future versions of them all over the place and all this other stuff. Like, the fact that like they even have spin-off Batman and other things in Spider-Man that you can do as well, like it's insane. But I'm just like, yo, give us another theatrical Batman animated movie now if they could do Spider-Man. Other, someone pointed out they should do fucking X-Men animated, not 90s.
I would like that,
but just straight up like in this style, like do X-Men. You don't, no multiverse, but just make animated X-Men. You don't need to necessarily. You could do live action, but the animated one could be so fucking cool, and it would make sense. But yeah, so Miguel, he is very interesting. Just because I haven't read any of his stuff, I don't know anything about him. I get like he's like a strange spider vampire.
Yeah, I was not aware of the vampire part.
I knew the vampire. I remember there was something about that, but I didn't know much else. I'm like, so is he like straight up when he bites you, you become a vampire too? Or is it more like a Morbius type
like,
thing?
I thought it was just a thing where like some Spider-Men get like fang spikes or whatever. And I thought he just had like a literal spider bite, but I guess not.
Yeah. I honestly don't know. I never really got into Spider-Man 2099 myself. It was never really an interesting area to me.
Yeah, like I said, that whole universe is weird because there's like future versions of everything, including like Venom and all the other characters. But they're all just like weird versions of them that aren't nearly as interesting as the originals. Like Miguel is interesting. Like he doesn't really need to web swing or anything because his suit can just fly, as far as I'm aware. Like I like the look of his suit; it's super cool, and like. Yeah, like the AI thing that he has with him all the time, like that's a pretty common thing that helps him like fight crime and keep track of crime and stuff. I just I don't have much experience actually reading a bunch of 2099 comics.
The other thing being, I don't think he was fleshed out as much as he could have been compared to like, okay, we got that full prologue with Gwen, right? That fully like explains everything with her. For him, he just kind of goes like, yeah, the me in that world died, and then I like kind of went in and you see him for like a second, and then that's it. I feel like one of two things. One, they could have really fleshed that out more in that moment and made it like a few minutes longer, just to put more intimacy in the situation of, hey, I was longing for a purpose, or why am I like this? Why are you like this in terms of like what made you want to go to that world in the first place to like replace that Miguel?
Well, because I mean, I assumed that he had that family. It just in that universe, he was the one that died versus in his original universe, everyone else died.
Like a reverse Bruce. Okay.
Yeah, so that's why he was like, "Well, this is perfect. I could have it all. I could still be Spider-Man, and in this universe, I can still have my family, and they could still have me." And as we saw, like it literally unraveled the whole universe to the point where like his daughter disappeared in his own arms, which would be like a horrifying experience for anyone. So I definitely understand why he's so like, we need to stop Miles, because I have personally seen what happens when you do what he's trying to do, and it does not end well.
So that's why I think they could have done a better job explaining it, because that's like, you don't get that really from that whole thing. Like, there's not that feeling when that does occur. If they actually flesh that out, like if he starts off by being like, I had a family once, like my canon events were much more brutal. It wasn't someone I looked up to. It was someone that depended on me, and I failed them, and it was someone I was raising, which is a whole nother version of fucked up compared to like, hey, my old ass fucking uncle just died. It's like, hey, my daughter died. That's a completely worse scenario in any situation, and they don't really portray that. And imagine doing that in the movie, but twice, going, I lost my family and I went to get a new one, and then I lost that one too. Like that would double it up on there, and then also really amplify the feeling of, oh shit, like he's a necessary, like he's a very hardcore good. He's like he's a
necessary evil.
Yeah, of sorts. And they don't really do as good of a job as they could have for that specific area. I think that's probably their weakest point of the film, is just Miguel. Not saying he's a bad character, but he could have been a lot more fleshed out, specifically
I could
him.
See that.
Yeah. Otherwise, the individual spiders, not the ones we've talked about so far, but yeah, which ones did you enjoy seeing? Like, and we talked, I guess really fast. Scarlet Spider, that was Andy Samberg.
Yeah, like that's probably easily my favorite.
I'm Ben Riley. So edgy. Hell yeah.
Just the fact that he's like, literally like, it's like, don't mind me, I'm just brooding about my dark past. That was a particularly bad memory.
Was that what happened in the 90s comics with him?
Not exactly, but like from what I understand, Ben Riley is just like a very melodramatic version of Parker, at least at this point, because he like knows he's a clone and all that stuff. So like he's got a lot of baggage.
Okay.
So I just thought it was really funny that they like really leaned into that. So
they've
like,
been making him a villain in the comics recently.
I mean, he was a villain like a while ago too. Like, well, I think the best way you could describe him is like kind of like the Red Hood.
Really?
Jason Todd Red Hood.
Because Peter had two clones.
Well,
there was Ben Riley and there was Kane Parker.
I might be thinking of Kane.
I think you're thinking of Kane, which Kane is probably my in the comics. I'll just say this real fast, guys, because Peter Parker in the comics right now is just absolute shit. Don't like it's just so they keep fucking up the character, and it's funny watching them fuck up the character because I think they do it on purpose to get sales out of just sheer anger of like people hate buying it of like I need to see what the fuck's happening. Why are they doing this? And then you read it and you go, why did I just spend my money on this? Thank God I didn't. But Kane is like this clone who eventually kills Ben. And he's like the evil clone. And then he comes back as a good guy later on and becomes the new Scarlet Spider.
Yeah, I think that's what I was thinking of.
He's got the red-black outfit, and it's really dope. And he becomes the Spider-Man of like Houston, which was interesting because it wasn't fucking New York for the first finally.
Yeah, I read a little bit of that. It was okay.
Yeah. And they go through afterwards it's Ben comes back as a villain and then he becomes a hero sort of, and then they brought him again as a villain and I'm like, the fuck is I haven't even read the last one. I have to read it because he teams up with Goblin Queen, the evil clone of Jean Grey, Madeline Pryor.
Yeah.
So I have to read that. It's like an X-Men Spider-Man crossover thing. But
so other than him, like it's so hard to say because there's so many Spider-Men you only see for like a second. But I really liked. I think it was like the original Spectacular Spider-Man.
Here I come!
Yeah, he's like, I could do anything he could do, and it's just like it's slow motion, and he completely misses entirely. It was so funny.
Was that the one from the post credits of the last movie?
Was that what they were going for?
Well,
I thought it was like the '90s cartoon one, but I could be wrong.
No, it was the older one.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it was like the one if you ever watched Djibouti dubs, it's the one that's based off of. That's what I thought it was supposed to be. It was just like, oh, I'm Spider-Man. And it's like when he goes and he's like, hey, you. And it's like, why are you pointing at me? And it's like, hey, don't point at me. Like that whole, kerfuffle they have in the end of the first one. I think that's that Spider-Man. I'm pretty sure. I'm almost positive. Yeah, no, because they did not have the 90s Spider-Man. He's a completely different feeling. And they would have done, I think, the theme for him when they show him for a second is also completely different too.
Yeah.
But yeah, then that was fucking funny. And then what was it? The weird Doc Ock Spider-Man or Scorpion Spider-Man, where it's like he's on you. Hey, what do you mean, boss? What are you talking about? And like turns around, he's on his back. Yeah. So that's an example of like. So did they make that character up, or is there like some hidden facet?
I swear I've seen that.
Okay. Before. Yeah. So that's why I'm like, I don't know, man. They also did an interesting job of not really showing a bunch of Peter Parkers. They're just like, yeah, there's this Peter Parker that we know. And then besides the Lego one, we don't really see an actual like Peter Parker outside of his mask the whole time. So that was because everyone else, like, they're all like, yeah, who do we have outside of the mask? Jessica, Miguel, a fucking pig, an anime one. Like,
I thought it was so funny, the one who's like just in VR at home.
Yeah, the VR girl, which if you look at like romance
Spider
stuff,
Bite.
Spider, was that her name? Okay.
Yeah.
So they definitely give you a feeling of if Spider-Gwen did go with like Hobie or something, there's already like this little feeling between Miles and Spider Bite you kind of noticed, right? You noticed
Yeah.
that? Okay,
Well,
yeah.
because like she had the chance to stop him and she chose not to.
Well, I mean, before that, when they first meet, like there's a
Oh
little bit
yeah.
of you feel you're like, oh, okay, I could see what you guys are doing. So there's that feeling too of just kind of like, hey, you can always move on and do something different. Uh, Getting to Miles versus Miguel, who is right? And when I say that, Miguel is thinking of the greater good. He's thinking of the whole multiverse and each universe specifically, where Miles is thinking very intimately of the
Yeah.
singular person you can save, but potentially at what cost?
So that's very interesting because both are showing very core qualities of Spider-Man.
Yeah,
Because Miles is showing the side of Spider-Man who's like, I don't care what the odds are. I can't give up. I have to try. Even if everyone tells me that this is like how it has to be, I have to at least try so I know that I did. Versus Miguel, who's very much like, I can't be selfish no matter how much I want to be. I need to do these things that I know will hurt me or other versions of me just because the alternative is so much worse. And like a great example of that, that I thought was in Spider-Man 2018, which spoilers for that game briefly. I thought there was a great moment in that game where there's like Doc Ock is trying to release this like virus, or he has released this virus into New York, and Aunt May has contracted it. She's very ill. She's like literally on death's door, and you get to a point where Peter gets a vial of the anti-serum that could save her life like immediately, but it's the only sample that they have, and they could also use it to make more of it if he doesn't waste it on Aunt May. And he gets like this close to giving it to Aunt May because he knows like he doesn't want to lose her,
yeah.
because that's the very selfish thing is he could save her, he literally can,
When you
but he
and you also
knows,
won't blame him if he did.
yeah, but he knows deep down that that's the selfish move and he needs to choose all the other people over what he personally wants. So I understand why Miguel is like, no, like it hurts, but we have to let these people go to save everyone else.
Yeah,
So that's why up until Gwen Stacy's like dad choosing to essentially abort the canon event, like possibly saving that part of her life, I honestly think Miguel is in the right, because like we said with the Indian Spider-Man world, like we literally see what happens at least once when you choose to be selfish and
yeah.
try to change things. So I don't know. I think Miguel is right, but I could be wrong.
So I put a poll up on Instagram, and 17% said Miles is right, 50% said Miguel is right, 33% said Peter is a great mentor. um, so majority go for Miguel. I personally, I gotta say I go with Miguel as well, but I think they gave him bad reasons to go along with it. So
It's
because
essentially
of,
just I have to.
for Miles, I agree. Like, I'm rooting for Miles to do what he needs to do for the sheer fact that it's like, oh, well, what if this undoes everything? And, this is still a movie for the whole family. It's not going to undo everything.
Yeah.
The world's going to survive. We don't know if his dad will make it, but we know for a fact the world is going to survive. And I think the whole thing of Miles, like, defying everything is he could still save his dad. Like, it is a possibility. But the reason I would almost say, it's worth the risk is because they're right about the reasoning. They were wrong about the execution. And what I mean by that is they didn't include Miles in the just telling him like, hey, this is the Spider-Verse. They didn't do that. Two, they called him like a mistake, and it's like, oh yeah, he might be a mistake, but they could have worked with him. Like the whole thing is like, yeah, he might be an anomaly, but he's working. Like it would not have made a difference if you had included him, educated him, and giving him all this stuff.
Yeah.
So then, like, if potentially something happens, he's going to do what he needs to do. And it's like, for all of them, it's the same situation because none of them got that opportunity to see this potentially happen and then go and stop it. Miles is the first one to get that. So they're kind of going off of faulty results there in that sense. But the sheer fact that if they hadn't treated him like an outcast, as a variant, like someone that wasn't meant to be, and were honest with him, then I think on number one, they could have been honest with them. Number two, they could have let him join the Spider-Verse. I think just telling them the truth mainly would have been the main thing. Because, like, are you really going to trust people telling you to let things go when they haven't told you the truth the whole time?
Yeah.
Like, I would definitely be like, nah, fuck y'all. I'm going to go do what I need to do. Y'all can rot for all I care. Like, that's definitely how it is.
Which is basically what Miles did.
Yeah, and he's right. Like, I wouldn't... Fuck them. Like, they don't deserve to any... Like, if they went about it that way, then that's their own karma coming back at them at that point. Otherwise, like, if he knew about everything and it's like, oh shit, you know, what do we got to do? And it's like, okay, you know all this, are you still going for it? Yeah. Okay, we're gonna stop you now. You literally know everything. We've told you everything. You've been with us the whole time. That is a different situation completely. It's like the whole Last of Us scenario. Oh, Joel's a bastard for stopping Ellie, like stopping them from using Ellie as a cure. And it's like, well, sorry guys. Ellie wasn't given a choice. She was asleep, and they tried to basically fuck with Joel the whole time and basically spit in his face for risking his life the whole time. If instead he got through and they let Ellie decide for herself. Boom. Everything is solved. You don't have to go through all this stuff.
Yeah, like if they had just let Joel talk to Ellie and she still chooses to do it, like he might have maybe let her do it.
He also can't stop her from doing her own thing. It's that that's the issue, and it's the same thing here. So Miguel is right, but I agree with Miles.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a good way to put it, yeah.
Yeah. So for what's next, like, I guess, like, before that, anything else, I'm pretty much good on it.
No, I think it's it.
For what we get next, you know, they're going to try to save his dad, or he's going to try to save his dad, but first he has to leave that current universe where he's Prowler, which is very interesting because it brings to mind two potential things. One, we still have Spot as the villain, but now we have this other Miles as a villain. And do you think they need any other villains besides that, or is this pretty much all they need?
Also have, like, Miguel is still hunting him too.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's enough. They don't need to add like anything else.
Compared to, like, whereas I guess, like, you look at the Tom Holland movies and you just kind of go like, can we get like Scorpion next, or, like, you know, you're looking at the classic Rogues Gallery, whereas this for Spider-Verse
just forgot they set up a Scorpion.
Whereas Spider-Verse, it's like you're not really going for the Rogues Gallery. You're going for like a weirder, different picture, like a bigger one that doesn't even involve that, which I do like because it doesn't take away from anything else, and you're getting they're not front and center. Like, you're not going to choose villain. It's a much more intense story that doesn't even need that. So
yeah, it's
very much appreciated. I could have sworn someone said Tom Holland was going to be in it, but I guess it was just the mention. Not that I don't really care, but I could have sworn there was like a thing about
I thought I saw there was going to be a post-credit scene, but nothing happened. So
I think I guess it was just someone just like faked it, if anything, or maybe he's in the third one. Like I said, I don't care if they throw him in or not. It matters very little to me, but I just thought about that. I'd much rather have 90s Spider-Man in there if we can in the third movie. That's honestly my only request, is that. And then maybe if they could, for Beyond Spider-Verse, like they did the Gwen prologue, do a Miguel prologue and show his story there. I think that would be really good. That way you can just kind of get a little bit more Miguel on how that works.
Yeah.
Otherwise,
I could see that being like the cold open to the movie, is just like seeing more about like Miguel and why he's doing what he's doing.
Yeah. Yeah. But I think that's it for Spider-Man, and we can move on to Transformers: Rise of the Beasts. aka Beast Wars, the live action movie, kind of, sort of. They could have
Sort
done
of.
better, but also is better than what we get usually at the same time, kind of
Yeah.
thing.
It's like the best way I could describe it briefly is I enjoyed it, but it was disappointing. Cuz
Yeah,
like it was fun to watch, but yeah, like I it's super funny to me that I definitely noticed that the Predacons were missing. I didn't notice until you texted me like the list for this movie that there were no Decepticons either.
yeah,
That's weird to me.
yeah,
Like it was just the few Terracons.
yeah. And I don't even know what you'd call the enemies in the fourth movie, because like
Oh,
there's the sniper rifle dude.
yeah. Also, by the way, I showed you a picture of Scourge at the theater. That's a different Scourge. Apparently, there was another Scourge originally that was like basically a herald of Unicron.
He was the Silver Surfer of Unicron.
Sort of, yeah.
I
So
mean,
that was
is Unicron more or less based off of Galactus,
oh,
right?
oh, absolutely. He's a giant, like I don't know, maybe they just were
They both
thinking
eat
like
planets.
yeah, well that's the thing. Like they both consume planets. It's possible that Unicron was started as just like what would be the biggest robot we could make? What if one was literally planet sized? What would he do if he was a planet sized robot? I don't know, destroy other planets? Like
I
so
forget. Is Galvatron a herald of Unicron or no?
yeah,
Yeah.
usually Galvatron, I believe, is like Unicron finds Megatron's body and reincarnates it as Galvatron. So I that's usually a thing, I think.
Okay. Um.
I'm a little bit disappointed we didn't get to see Unicron transform into a giant robot, but whatever.
Yeah. Last night, because who were the villains in last? Oh, you said it was.
Yeah, I also forgot that they apparently did have Galvatron in Age of Extinction.
Damien last night.
No. Remember when Stanley Tucci was trying to make new Optimus Prime with his like transformium, and he was trying to make it out of Megatron's like head, and it just kept making a new Megatron. Apparently they called that Galvatron.
Boo.
Yeah.
Okay. Gotcha. Uh.
So yeah,
So
the last night the main villain was like some random robot they made that I swear I don't think is the thing from any other canon, just called Quintessa. That was weird.
so we finally get the Maximals after all this time. Like this is we're going for the '90s audience.
We get like four of them,
Yes.
and like one of them doesn't even speak.
So it was cool seeing the Maximals. We got very excited to get to see the Maximal symbol, but then there's not really much else, and they only maximize for like a second, and then they go back to their
That was
regular
so
version.
disappointing. Yeah, they transformed like one time, and it's like yeah, they just like for some reason don't stay transformed for long.
Yeah, it didn't make any sense. Like you get Optimus Primal, the gorilla version of Optimus Primal, as we all know. We got Cheetor, we got Rhinox,
Like
who
Eraser didn't even ever transform.
Ariaser never transforms. Rhinox never talks. It's very weird.
Yeah,
And Cheetor, luckily,
super
you
weird.
get a little bit from Cheetor. Like at
He
least
says one line at least.
was it only? Yeah,
Like it literally was like he pounced on Mirage, and then when they like patch everything up, he just gets off him. He's like, "Sorry, brother," and that's it.
yeah. So it's kind of sad the way they do the
Yeah.
Maximals like that, because they make a big deal of Rise of the Beasts. It's the Beast Wars, the Maximals, and then it's like, oh, how much are they in terms of like involvement in the
Like
movie?
maybe 20%.
Yeah, it's like,
maybe?
oh, well, you just shit on, we lied, fuck you, and it's like, oh, okay, yeah, this is why this isn't as good as the first Transformers or Bumblebee. It's like third. It's hovering just above not good, but it made it in, if that makes sense. Like,
Yeah.
for those that don't know, there's 7 Transformers movies we've got now. We got Transformers Revenge of the Fallen, Transformers The Dark of the Moon, Age of Extinction, The Last Night, Bumblebee, and now Rise of the Beasts. 2 through 4, absolute garbage.
Yeah,
I can't
they
say that
just kept
about
getting.
5. I can't say that about last night. I never watched
Yeah,
it.
they just kept getting worse.
I don't want to watch it. Age of Extinction is the definition of the worst Transformers movie, though. So in terms of ranking them right now, it's like Bumblebee, Transformers, and then Rise of the Beasts. About like, or you could even say Transformers, Bumblebee, Rise of the. They kind of ping pong, but like, Rise of the Beast for sure is third. Uh, Disappointed with Maximals for sure. I think the ones I wanted were all the ones that were missing.
Yeah,
Specifically Rat Trap, which I thought would have been perfect for this movie, especially
it's
them being in
nuts
New
that
York.
he wasn't in it.
They
'Cause
didn't
he's
have
like-
the rat in the movie that takes place in New York that literally goes, "Yeah, I'm Rat Trap." It's like, dude, holy, that's fucking made for the fucking city of rats. Like, come
Well,
on,
like,
man.
That and Rat Trap and Cheetor are constantly shit talking each other throughout the
Always.
entire series.
Yeah. And then you have like the wiser Transformer of Tigatron, who, with all the Transformers stuff going on, they like brought back a bunch of Beast Wars figures for the I think for the movie, like Hasbro did.
Yeah.
Guess what? Tigatron was a really big figure they brought back, but they don't put him
For
in
real?
the movie. Yeah. And they
So
could have done a
weird.
really cool like 2 to 3 movie transformation thing where in the show Tigatron and Airazor get like caught up with this like this weird technology absorbs them both, and they come out as like Tigerhawk, which is like the ultimate
It's
maximal.
so cool.
Literally
And
the
he's gone
most
in,
powerful
like, 2
maximal.
episodes.
Yeah, he gets destroyed by a space laser. It was really stupid.
Ugh.
Fucking, I hate everything, James. I just hate everything. So you have that. You have Dinobot, who's a raptor who starts off as a Predacon and changes sides to the Maximals, and he has a whole thing, and he's really dope. And you have what was the wolf guy's name? The hybrid one.
Yeah. Oh,
Silver Wolf.
Silverbolt?
Was it Silver Wolf or Silverbolt?
Oh, might have been Silverwolf. I don't know.
You have Silver Wolf and you have the Manta Ray.
Depth Charge.
Sorry. Huh?
Depth Charge.
Depth Charge. That was such a fucking cool name.
Dude,
Holy
he was
shit.
one of my favorites. I liked him.
Yeah, God, Depth Charge. So you have all these cool characters you could have also included, even if you're already going to put characters in that aren't going to talk, you could still put more characters in if you're not going to have them talk anyway and have them be dope-ass fucking heavy troopers and stuff. And they how dare they go like, Airazor, what happened to the ones with you? Oh, they didn't make it. Who? We never saw them to begin with. Who the fuck were they? You could have at least shown us for a second who they were.
So that's why I gotta hope that maybe one day they might do an actual Beast Wars movie that shows like what happened in prehistoric times.
That would have been, yeah.
The Maximals and Predacons. Maybe.
That would be cool. Yeah.
We'll see.
So you've got them, or the lack thereof them. And it's crazy because the whole thing, it kept sounding like they were going to do 5 factions when this movie was being made. They're like, yeah, you're going to have the Autobots and Decepticons, the Maximals, the Predacons, the Terracons. And I'm like, whoa, that's fucking crazy. 5 different ones? And it ends up being 3. And they still make Maximals, the new one, take backstage. Like, they're not even in the front seat, which is really annoying.
Yeah.
And so the Predacons, who are the natural...
I was right. It was Silverbolt.
Okay. The Predacons were the natural enemies of the Maximals. They're like the animal version of the Decepticons. You have like T-Rex Megatron. You have Scorponok. You have Pterosaur, who's the pterodactyl, a scorpion. You have Tarantulas. You have Black Arachnid, who also changes sides to the Maximals, who's the Black Widow. You have...
yeah, I love Silverbolt had a thing with her.
Oh yeah, because she liked him, but Cheetor liked her too. Wasn't that the whole...
Like,
thing?
I was just reading the Wikipedia about it. It's apparently I forgot Silverwolf was like one of those super chivalrous dudes, and he was like constantly trying to be like,
hello,
oh, my fair lady,
he would talk
how
like,
could you work for
how
such
are you
vile
doing?
beasts?
Yeah, it was great. But yeah, Black Arachnid, you had what was his name? The ant, Inferno.
Yeah, Inferno.
Yeah, Inferno.
He was a fire ant.
There was there was like a cowboy scorpion, there was another hybrid like Silverwolf, but he was like a Western scorpion type character that wasn't Scorponok. And you also had who was the counter to, wasn't it a giant crab who was the counter to Depth Charge?
Yeah.
I forget what his name was. But there's like all of these characters who
Oh
have
yeah, Quick
access to.
Strike was the fusion guy.
Yeah, dude, he literally they made him a cowboy. It was fucking funny. But yeah, there's
Rampage.
oh, is that the crab?
Yeah, that was a crab.
Okay. So you have all of these these Predacon characters, and of course Waspinator, the everyone's favorite character, Waspinator. So you have all these characters they could have also thrown in, and now you have a whole new war that you could do, like they did in the first three movies, where they kept throwing in like Decepticons and Autobots. Like, there's so much they could do with this, but they kind of take a much cheaper, less interesting route. And then yeah, no Decepticons at all. They're still non-existent. Instead, the only Predacon appearance you get is literally just on Scourge's trophy list of like emblems is a Predacon emblem, and that's it. And you're like, really?
Yeah, so I
That's
guess
all we get?
they existed.
And then they
At some
killed them.
point.
That's trap. That's total crap. And then you know, the Autobots in this movie, how were they fine? You know, they were okay.
I liked Mirage. Like, he was
Mirage
super
and
fun.
what was the what's her name? The bike.
Oh, RC. Yeah.
RC and Mirage were cool.
I liked RC because she looked straight up exactly like the
Show?
Generation 1 show version of her.
I liked them because it felt like they were kind of bringing in the older Transformer characters, but they didn't have that very gritty brown design that the others had in the like original trilogy of Transformers movies.
Yeah.
Where
I forgot that Mirage was even in those movies. But he was like a Ferrari and didn't look anything.
he was
He
in those
was
movies.
not Huh?
He was in the Transformers.
Apparently. I was like watching it. Like, apparently he died off screen in between movies or whatever.
Really?
Yeah.
Wait, was that also RC? There was a female in the second Transformers movie. There's a female.
I don't think that
Uh,
was RC.
Okay.
That might have been another Transformer.
I think honestly, I feel like they've always done a shit job with all the characters because they do all these bullshit like, oh, they died off screen type of thing. Like they keep changing
Well, I was
the
literally
roster in
watching.
between each movie, and I get they're like trying to sell different toys, but it's just like, dude, come on, like just give us some actual continuity here.
The annoying thing about Mirage is, unless the YouTube video I was watching earlier it was like wrong and like bullshit, they claimed it was because in the movie that he showed up in, he was a Ferrari, and then they couldn't get the rights to put a Ferrari in the next movie or whatever. So they were like, fuck it, we'll just say he died fighting Decepticons or whatever.
They couldn't change him into a different car, like a Porsche.
It's not like that's never happened in the movies.
Yeah,
It's not like Bumblebee literally did that in the first fucking movie.
yeah, he literally, yeah, God, so half-assed at everything. They're always just they just want to sell. Those movies are just to sell toys, guys. If you didn't realize by now, they are just literally toy selling movies. The human characters. You have two characters really. I don't feel like talking
like
about his
Noah.
brother. Yeah, Noah's cool, and what was the girl's name? Let me check.
I forget.
Elena. So you have
Right.
Noah and Elena. They were cool.
Yeah, I like that she was the one that like she was actually smart enough to put shit together to like figure out where they need to go next and stuff.
Yeah,
like
the
that.
archaeologist intern who's like a
Yeah.
better archaeologist than the other people that work there.
Honestly, Noah, there was no reason for him to be there other than he's like, hey, I can't just like trust you to save Earth. I'm coming with because it's my planet.
I loved the theater when he's like, yeah, we saw how if I just leave everything up to you, we saw how that turned out because he's mentioned like Bumblebee died.
Dude, everyone was like, oh,
Ooh,
shit.
yeah, it was like all of the theater was just like, damn, and I was like, dude, he just burned Optimus. That was actually pretty good.
Like, as fun as it was to see, like, I guess a reference to the again G1 Transformers where they would give the human characters like a battle suit to not die.
Yeah,
Like, it was kind of fun to see them do that for Noah and give him a power suit to help in the last fight. But I thought it was so weird that Mirage just like, as he's dying, is just like, I need you to take the wheel. And he like shrinks down to human sized. Like, I thought at first he just like popped him an arm off and was like, here, I'm going to turn this into a suit for you. But he just like straight up completely disappeared. And he's just a suit now. And I was just like, what? is he still in there? Like, what's going on?
Yeah. And I think like it's the whole thing of with the designs too. I think the designs are done a lot better in these more recent movies. Like you see the Decepticons in Bumblebee. They looked really cool. They looked very unique compared to I say it before, but like when you look at the original designs of all the characters in the previous movies, they all look the same. Just like very gritty metal. There's
Yeah.
no feeling of like what they're based off of the source materials designs, right? Because I feel like in the cartoons they're very colorful, right?
Oh,
For the most
they're
part.
like pretty much all the different unique Transformers are very recognizable as individual characters.
Yeah, so they don't really do that in the original stuff. Whereas in this one, yeah, you look at Mirage and RC, they look incredibly standalone, and even the Terracons look more or less standalone, except for Scourge. Just literally looks like generic, fucking Transformer. Like it's literally if you've just made a game of like create your own Transformer, and they give you the standard issue one. It's just
Yeah.
Scourge. Scourge is
I
that standard issue.
I love that he at some point gets his face mask like ripped off, which I didn't even realize was a mask. I thought it was just like his face. And underneath you get to see, I guess, what he used to look like before he worked for.
His head was round.
Yeah, and it's just like, oh, he looks kind of gross and he's got some fucked up teeth.
I think it's supposed to be
Okay.
like, oh, this is what Unicron did to him before he like folded.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like
Uh,
the price you pay for power or whatever.
or something like that. Yeah. Otherwise, the Terracons were cool. The designs for them were interesting. Uh, the whole thing with the Beast Wars is they're the most unique. It's an animal, and all the animals are different animals, so they have very interesting designs compared to cars, where the cars you have to really focus on it. You need a license. You don't need a license for an animal. Like you could just do an
Yeah.
animal. It's so much easier. Which is why it's like, yo, why don't you do more Beast Wars and Predacons? You don't need license for these characters. You could just do them and have no issue of paying extra money for anything. That sounds great.
Yeah, I even love that like Optimus Primal's, I guess, mentor in the beginning of the movie was like a bigger silverback gorilla. Like I thought that
Yeah,
was cool.
that was cool. It just immediately just gets
He just
got.
immediately dies.
Then the GI Joe crossover. I was not expecting that.
I literally like kind of shrieked slash gasped in the theater because I literally did not ever think that they would do that. Because
Yeah,
I forgot that there even are Transformers versus GI Joe comics where like the Autobots team up with GI Joe to fight the Decepticons and Cobra, and just like seeing, just I love how perfect that was. Like the entire like interview, I was like, okay, so what are they setting up, like a shield type thing for the Transformers universe? Like, okay, interesting. And they open up the back room and there's like the vehicle there that I'm just like, that looks like it should be recognizable, but I don't recognize it. That's interesting. And just like I love how the guy's like, okay, you don't want to tell us anything, whatever. Just if you change your mind, here's my card. And he turns it over and it says G.I. Joe. I fucking lost my mind because I was just like, I can't believe they might actually make a G.I. Joe crossover movie with Transformers.
I wish when they did that, it just went real American hero GI Joe. Like that would have been great, and then it just ends. Uh, I'm very so this kind of fucks up our whole idea of more Beast Wars, please, because if they're doing Transformer GI Joe crossover, you can probably bet your ass that it's going to be
It's
mainline
gonna be the G1
Autobots.
guys, because that's
Yeah,
that's usually who it is.
so it's just going to be Autobots, and then you're going to have probably like what's it, Duke with is it Duke? Is that the main one? I think I forget, or is it? I think it's Duke. Yeah, Duke
I
and
need to get into GI Joe now apparently because I don't
Duke,
know
I think
any
is
of
the main
those.
one, and then it's like Flynn is like the second in command. The G.I. Joe movies were also done poorly in terms of like continuity. Like they just go, "Oh, the other Joes are all dead, but here's some new Joes that are
Weird.
alive." Yeah, all the Joes from the first movie die, and then they go, "Here's a new cast." But they only show Channing Tatum die from the first one. I think it was Channing Tatum as like Duke. Yeah, and then all the other ones have off-screen deaths, and it's just like, yeah, here's Roadblock and Flint. and Lady J as like the new ones, even though Roadblock is supposed to be secondary to fucking Flynn. Flynn's like second in command, but they made him like a rookie for some reason because it's like The Rock is Roadblock, so they're like, oh, The Rock's the main character. It's a whole thing. Uh, the crossover could be cool. I think they can do a good job with it, but yeah, that just means we're gonna get the more generic characters more than anything. And then the only thing that brings me some real enjoyment of this potential is just Cobra being like, Megatron, you must support Cobra! Cobra! Like, just that, just having fucking Cobra in there. But are they going to do Cobra right? Or are they going to give us, like, generic fucking, I'm Cobra, instead of, fuck, I'm Cobra! Like, I want high-pitched piece of shit, like, shitty Cobra, like, hey, it's Cobra, what's he doing? Oh, he put a blanket over himself and is trying to escape the Joes again. Like, that Cobra. I want an idiot, because it's the best thing ever. I want to laugh, because it's Cobra, guys. Like, come on, please, give this to me. I doubt we'll get that, but I really don't understand either how this will work. Like, is this a reboot? Is this just a prequel to the original, like, 5 movies?
At
like,
this
how
point,
are we doing
I feel like
this?
it has to be a reboot series, because this movie straight up just like retcons The Last Night entirely. Because one of the major plot points of The Last Night was that the core of the Earth was Unicron, which, to be fair, I know that sounds insane, but that is actually one of the many like plot points that they've tried for one of the Transformers shows. I think it was like Transformers Energon or something like that. I can't remember which series it was, but there was one series where they were like, what if, like, when Earth was forming, the center like asteroid or whatever that had the most gravity to keep pulling things together to eventually form a planet, what if that was just Unicron? And just over eons, he got covered with enough space debris that he got completely covered and is indistinguishable from a regular planet, which is a really cool idea. But since this new movie straight up had Unicron just like appearing outside of Earth's orbit to eat Earth, I don't think that that's a possibility anymore.
I was here the whole time. Yeah. It does not work.
So it definitely feels like a different universe to the Michael Bay movies at this point.
Not to mention, like, in the original movies, it's like that Sector 7 organization or whatever the hell they're called.
Yeah.
And instead now, it's G.I. Joe. So it kind of, what happened? What changed to where it went from Sector, like, G.I. Joe to Sector 7 type shit. So it is, it is curious. Also, Noah's Transformer suit was cool. That was interesting for sure. I'm sure that sold a lot of toys too. And what was the last? Oh yeah, I mean, like, one funny thing about this, guys, not really related to the movie itself, but eyelash. The movie, when we saw it on Monday. We saw it before it came out. It was an advanced screening that I won tickets to, so it was like, oh cool, all right, we could see it early. And because it was an advanced screening, like, usually though, like, anyone that's maybe like a content creator or something gets to go to those as well. Kind of Funny was there too.
Yeah.
Which is interesting. And the whole thing, I think I've said it on the show before, but not Kind of Funny specifically, but like Greg and Colin back in like the Podcast Beyond days when they were together. Those two were like pretty much like the main influences of like why this show was made in the first place.
Yeah.
So it's funny kind of seeing like their company that they created together at the premiere also. And Colin left the company a long time ago. He's got his own different one, and Greg wasn't at the premiere either though, because he's got a kid. So it's like all these other people, and when we saw him, I'm just like out loud like, oh hey, it's blah 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 and blah 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 and blah blah blah. Like, I remember the names, but I'm like Tim Geddes, Nick Scarpino, Andy Cortez.
I'm glad I got to fist bump Mike on his way into the Uber.
Snowback Mike, Joey Noel. Yeah, you see all these people, and I'm like, wow. So it was just funny, just seeing them there. I thought it was hilarious. But otherwise, movie, like I said, for me, it's the number 3, borderline right above the level where it's like a positive instead of a negative, but still disappointing. it wasn't disappointing when we came out of the theater, but yeah, giving more time to really just like think about it. It's like, oh yeah, it could have been so much better, but
Yeah,
they
it's like
didn't do it again.
it's a good entertaining action movie, but yeah, as a huge nostalgic fan of Beast Wars, it did fall short
Yeah.
a little bit.
I feel like every Transformer movie, they kind of do it where the writers go, "Hey, what if we made it good?" And they go, "No, no, no, no. We want it to sell, not make it good." Like
Yeah.
that's kind of how they go with it practically. But that is Transformers, and I think that is everything for this week, guys. So uh, that has been episode 194. Yes.
Yeah.
Like I said, this comes out on the Friday. If you want to check it out, we have the news-centric episode, gaming news, on the Summer Game Fest, and the Xbox Showcase, along with like a little bit talk of Starfield and whatnot. That was episode 183. If you want to check that out, if you want to comment, give us feedback, or give us a question for a future episode of the show, you can at sutrosidetalk@gmail.com. If you want to follow us on TikTok, Instagram, and Twitter, you can at Sutro Sidetalk, all one word. And hopefully I'll have some more interactive, engaging content, at least specifically on TikTok, hopefully. It's going to be a busy week, I know that for sure. And then, because there's more showcases, guys. There's still more news. You can subscribe on whatever platform you are listening on or watching. If it is YouTube, give us a like besides just subscribing. If it is Apple Podcasts, you can really help us out by giving us a 5-star review. If it is Spotify, if you can rate us, that'll also help. But above all, if you guys can share out our show, just tell people about it word of mouth, share it online, whatever it is, social media. That is the most helpful way you guys can really help us out. And of course, you can follow James on Twitter at InvaderJim124. You can follow me on Twitter at CocoComzilla. Next week for episode 195 will be another news episode. It'll be on the Capcom Showcase. I think that's what it's called. And the Ubisoft Forward. It should be much shorter than the Xbox Summer Game Fest one, surely for the fact that these will only be from the games from those specific publishers, which means it'll be a lot less in terms of like the amount of games shown, and each one more depthful, if anything. So a lot more manageable. Along with that, there might be like a couple other showcases we'll include at a much smaller level, but we'll just kind of see what's going on with that week as it comes. And then instead of having a second side talk episode, potentially aiming on like the regular movies that are coming out, it would actually still be on a current movie, but if we can, we'll try to record a new episode of The Cut of Steel, the DC specific movie, or DC-centric show that we do, and it'll be on the movie The Flash, if we could see that on time, as well as potentially maybe secure one or two people to show up with us to talk about that movie. And like I said in the previous episode, if we are able to do The Flash on time, I'm hoping over the next like 2 to 3 months, we can have another 4 episodes out as well, kind of catching up on all the live action movies that we've missed so far: Black Adam, Shazam! Fury of the Gods, Birds of Prey, Wonder Woman 1984. God, I'm not looking forward to that.
Oh my god, we still never talked about that one.
Yeah, we avoided Birds of Prey and Wonder Woman for a very long time.
That was the one that killed it. We were just like, no one wants to talk about this movie.
It was also Birds. Then we were going to do Birds of Prey first. And
oh,
it was
right,
just
yeah.
like, oh, I don't want to do it. And I was like, fuck, okay. So we have pretty much 5 movies to really cover over the next few months. So we'll see how that goes. It's just I got to find some people for those to populate those episodes in terms of like, I'm going to look at other DC podcasts and maybe YouTube channels just to see if I can, that's where I'd look for potential 3rd and 4th chairs for these episodes. But we'll see how it all goes. Like I said, for sure, Capcom Ubisoft episode of Sutro Sidetalk, if we can. The Flash Cut of Steel episode. See what happens. Otherwise, have a great week, guys. So long.
Thanks for listening.